What's up guys, Pete here from the Sunday Drive, and today we are replacing the front and rear shocks on my 2004 Silverado LS 4x4 behind me, so stay tuned. Now this is part 2 of a multi-part series where we're replacing multiple steering and suspension components on this truck to give it a refresh. We're not doing everything, but we are doing most of the components. In the future videos, we'll be doing the tie rod ends, and we'll be doing the pitman arm and idler arm. The model numbers are, for the rear, 24-186742, and for the fronts, 24-186643, in case you're wondering, because it can get quite confusing when you're looking for these shocks for a stock height truck. And these shocks are considered a favorite among the Silverado community. They are supposed to give a better ride than factory without breaking the bank. They look awesome. Now, as always guys, the parts and tools in this video will be linked in the description below. And if you purchase through those links, usually they help us out a little bit, which we greatly appreciate because those help keep the channel going and growing. All right, so as you can see, we are starting in the back. This is the passenger side, and the old shock looks terrible. It's covered in rust. This is really easy to do in the rear. You really don't even need a lift. You can do it very easily with the truck almost on the ground because there's a lot of space up here, especially if you remove the rear spare tire, which if you need to know how to do that, watch that video. So as you can see, there is a nut on the bottom and on the top. And to do this, you'll need a 21mm socket and wrench. Now before removing these bolts, we usually like to spray everything down with PB Blaster. It's a penetrating liquid and it makes removing rusty and dry bolts a lot simpler. Now this one's not too bad. You might need to get a breaker bar on these sometimes. Now as you can see, this bolt's kind of tight in here. Half of that reason is because the entire axle is hanging, so you can either try and get something under this to push up a little bit, but if you're on a lift, be very careful. If you're on jacks, be very careful. Okay, so as you can see, the bolt is at an angle, so I'm going to use this high lift and lift up on the suspension a little bit, and then I almost got it. There's the bolt. And as you can see, this is the old shock, covered in rust, flaking away. Here's the head of it. So just looking at these two shocks side by side, I mean, other than the fact that the one on the right is way older and rustier, which is normal for things, the shock on the left just looks way better. Just from the rubber boot to the machining, it looks way more robust. It's a little bit thicker, wider. This should make the ride quality a little bit better, so I'm excited to see how that goes. So we're gonna clean this up with a wire brush before putting it back in and put some anti-seize on it. Now if you notice, this vise isn't even bolted down yet. We just got it, we moved into a new shop. But this thing is a beast. It's an 8-inch vise, and even when it's not bolted down, like, it does a pretty good job. So yeah, this is a badass vise. So I'm gonna hit the top shock mount with a wire brush real quick, just to clean up any of the flaking off rust. We're gonna be doing a series where we take the bed off of this and redo the frame. We're gonna sandblast it and maybe put POR 15 or some sort of other finish on here to make this truck last, because I honestly really like this body style. And the truck's in pretty solid condition otherwise, so. All right, so you wanna put the rubber boot on the top. Pop your bolt through. Take some anti-seize and put it on the end of the bolt. I'm not going to tighten this all the way. I want to be able to move it around. I'm going to cut the strap holding the shock in, and then the trick is to slip a bolt through this bottom mount. And as you can see, I can't even get the bolt through the holes don't line up, and this is fully extended, which tells me that we need to lift up on this axle again. So we're using this Sunex 1,500 pound high lift. It's, you know, I didn't think we were gonna need it that much, but it's actually been very useful since using the lift. You can get up here high under components and get a little bit of pressure on these things that weigh too much for me to pick up on. So it also has a nice foot pedal. So once you get it up to be tight, you can push down on the foot pedal and get a little bit of a lift out of it.
We're hanging on it the most weight or what?
Wrench on the nut. And torque these down to spec. Now go ahead and come back to the top and torque that one down to spec as well. And there you go, that's your rear passenger side. Now we're gonna do the driver's side, same thing, except you'll notice that the shock is facing a different direction. It goes from the axle to the back of the truck as opposed to from the axle to the front of the truck. Same two bolts, it's very straightforward. All right, so the bottom bolts are easy to get to, but the top bolt is harder to get to with this shield in the way. So we're gonna take this out. All you need is a screwdriver and a trim removal tool, and you can pop out all these push pins throughout the fender liner. So here's one of the clips. As you can see, this one's separated because I accidentally pulled this out all the way, but it just goes into this hole. Now, as you can see, it's still hanging. One of the wiring harnesses does clip into the back. And now that opens up everything. And if you're ever gonna replace your spark plugs, highly recommend taking out this fender liner because everything is just right there. I can see all four spark plugs. All right, so now we can easily see this top nut and we can remove this front shock. I think it was time. Everything is very rusty. So this is a 15mm nut, but as you can see, these threads are very rusty. So to make my life a little bit easier, I'm gonna take a wire brush and clean these up. After that, we're gonna get some vice grips on the top. You can use an adjustable wrench as well. There are two flat spots on the top of this. And then you're gonna hold the top and spin the nut. Don't feel too bad if you can't get this off without cutting it. You can cut right through this rubber bushing and all the way through, and that'll allow you to get this out. The kit does come with new hardware, new bushings, new washers, and in here is a new nut. So all is not lost if you need to get rid of this. And pull this bolt out. Go ahead and clean up this perch for the shock with the wire brush. Drop your new shock in, push your bolt in. And just get that on. You don't need to tighten it up yet. Now take this boot, slide it over the threaded rod, put your metal washer and your bushing with the nub facing up. And now you're gonna have to apply a lot of force to this shaft. Push it down and put it under the mount. There you go. Now take your other bushing, put the nub facing down. And slip your nut on top. All right, so the top is tight. We can go back to the bottom and tighten that 21mm bolt. So we've got our 21mm wrench on, and just finished tightening this up. Now this shock is useful for obviously a factory height ride like mine, but it will work up to a 2-inch lift. So that's it, guys. That's how you install the front and rear shocks on this 2004 Silverado. This should work for all first-gen Silverados and probably even second and third-gen Silverados as well, because it's pretty much the same setup. So this was the second part of the series. The first part was the sway bar end links and polyurethane bushings. In the next 2 videos, or maybe 3 videos, we're going to be showing the pitman arm, the idler arm, and the inner and outer tie rods. So be sure to check those out. As always, if you like this video, please give us a big like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.